It just is a story to try and, hard to fully wrap your head around because there is so much news flow. But again, a story of, demand that's growing significantly and supply that is really struggling to ramp up fast enough to be able to meet that demand.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a quick reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products, or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Drew Zimmerman, Noble Plains Uranium President. Drew, great to have you back in the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Lucian, and looking forward to it.
Same here. I always start with my guests about the broader market. In your case, uranium market. Every day of positive news, every week, every day, every month, we have positive news when it comes to nuclear and uranium. I want to hear your assessment of the uranium market today. How do you see it? What are the tailwinds and headwinds that you are seeing it going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be more accurate with, every day. I mean, I feel bad. I'm very involved in this sector, and it's hard for me to keep track of, how much news flow we're seeing, both on the supply and demand side. I think for me, it's just a case of demand continues to grow, both immediately with, reactor life extensions and restarts globally. Obviously, a big political sort of upset or surprise in Japan, and a new prime minister there that is supposed to be very pro-nuclear, and the potential for, again, some immediate restart, which again changes the very front end of the uranium demand side, which isn't sort of priced in or modeled in with most people's models that are already showing a deficit. So a big caveat there. The other side is supply. I think we're seeing, the two largest global suppliers of uranium, Cameco and Kazatoprom, really struggle to get to what they thought they were going to be producing in 2025 and 2026 as well. So, that leaves a, widening gap that the secondary market is having trouble to fill. And when you look at the secondary supply of the market, we've had Spot Physical Uranium Trust and Yellowcake both raising a lot of capital and taking significant pounds off of the market. I think Spot Physical Uranium Trust over 73 million pounds that they now hold. So that's taken, again, sort of that buffer, that excess capacity out of the market. And it's going to be one of those markets, again, we sort of saw spot prices run higher and now they're settling back a little bit. But I think when we start to see the utilities step in, and they're going to have to step in a big way, there's not going to be the amount of pounds that they need, and that's when we can really start to see prices move. So, it's been sort of the financial players, so to speak, that have kicked things off a little bit here near term, getting us back above $80 a pound. But I think that longer term stretch is still coming with the utilities because of what the financial players have done, what the supply side looks like, and where the demand side is heading. And again, that's without sort of the longer term build out of what's been all the good news with SMRs and larger scale build outs on big reactors. Obviously, Westinghouse trying to do 10, whether that's with the Fermi project down in Texas, the giant data center, so on and so forth. So it just is a story to try and, hard to fully wrap your head around because there is so much news flow. But again, a story of, demand that's growing significantly and supply that is really struggling to ramp up fast enough to be able to meet that demand.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. The macro picture it never looked like this way. It's on all uranium nuclear fronts, we are seeing the positive developments. When it comes to the developments, let's touch on your company, Noble Plains. The most recent news is the appointment of Chris Healey that is actually uranium veteran with 40 years of uranium experience, including ISR operations at Cameco Highline Mine. Tell me, please, what does he brings to the company? Of course, just like I said, he brings experience, but what else? And how will his presence advance the projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime you get to bring a veteran of industry into a company, you're going to get a wealth of experience, both on the corporate side, and then, of course, in Chris's experience, definitely on the technical side. And where that really shines for us is our flagship Duck Creek project. Again, a project where we're looking to advance rapidly. We know there's a historical sort of resource there, over 4,000 drill holes. But where Chris can really come in is one, helping us, understand the geology that we already modeled in the Wasatch Formation. But with Cameco joining us to the south of that project and his work there, most of their mineralization is in the Fort Union Formation, a formation that is completely untested on our project. And with our upcoming drill program, we do want to test. So when you get drill results and understand the geology for the very first time and seeing what it looks like, having somebody on your team that can look at those results and say, this is what I know from, what was happening a mile south of where we are, of, what you're seeing, where you want to go next. So if somebody that really understands that geology and has firsthand experience of what the mineralization looked like in that formation really will be invaluable, as I stated in our press release, and helping us guide towards being able to realize the potential of that project. So a lot of good things with bringing Chris on, but again, a big part will be his experience that's so close to our flagship project.
Of course, like you said, upcoming drilling program for our viewers. Can you share the specifics of the upcoming drilling program? How much will you drill? What's the budget? How are the preparations going? Give me some color, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We announced after we acquired the project that we had submitted for a drill permit of 198 holes. We're, continuing to evaluate and fine tune that as we sort of go between what we are calling sort of three categories of drill holes. So the first category being confirmation holes. Again, with the significant number of historical drill holes, if we confirm or sort of drill right next to those historical holes and show that our data is the same as the historical data, we can then really take that historical data at face value and being true. So that's going to be between sort of 20 to 25 holes. We'll be confirming all of those historical drill holes that will, again, go towards that exploration target of 5.4 million pounds, becoming a compliant resource. The next stage is, again, we've got other historical holes outside of that where we just didn't have enough data for them to be part of a 43101 report, but we know there was high grade intercepts there. So we're calling these holes our expansion and potential high grade holes. So being able to expand on the mineralization that was part of that exploration target in the 43101. Again, we think we can add to the resource with those holes. We're targeting anywhere from sort of 80 to 120 holes. Again, we are realizing that we're sort of going into the fall and winter, so weather may become a factor, but again, we can drill some of these holes relatively quickly. And then the exciting thing as the third and final category is what we're calling our big exploration holes. Those are going to be holes that go all the way down into the Fort Union formation for the very first time on this project. But we'll be testing for mineralization in that zone. And again, it's not just Cameco to our south. It's, we've got three different uranium energy company projects. We've got American Uranium and Global Uranium and Enrichment. We have 56 million compliant pounds surrounding us in these different projects. And the majority of that mineralization is in the Fort Union Formation. So again, for us, it's a known area that is very likely to host potentially the most uranium mineralization on our project, on top of the robust mineralization that we have in the shallow Wasatch Formation. So again, that's going to be a program that maybe evolves as we drill it and as we learn more and as we see what comes. But we're going to be going through each of those three categories of holes sort of as we drill, with the potential to sort of adjust things as we move forward through that drill program. But again, really wanting to confirm what we know is there in the historical data, potentially to expand both the size and grade of that with some of the expansion holes. And then again, the big thing for us that could be, very, very exciting is the testing of the Fort Union Formation, because again, if we find mineralization down at that level in that formation, it could be, an absolute game changer for this project, which is, very exciting for us.
Definitely. Just quick return. In a perfect world, when would you have the compliant resource? That would be something about somewhere around mid 2026, right? In a
Yeah.
perfect world.
In a perfect world, we get through this drill program, we work on compiling the data, and then again, we'd work with a third party company to renew the 43101, that again would get us to a compliant resource. So we would, target late first half of next year. But again, the good thing for us is the 43101 with the exploration target was just completed. So, it's not a sort of fresh start for the company to, redo that 43101. It's something that we can kind of build on from where we are. And again, it'll just be modeling all the data that were brought in from the current drill program. So that'd be very exciting, because we think again compliant pounds are going to be worth more and more in this market as uranium prices continue to rise, and being able to get that pretty big floor of value under our company is going to be a pretty significant milestone for us.
Yes. You closed last week an oversubscribed private placement. I believe you raised a little bit more than a million points. Correct me if I'm wrong. A little bit over a million, right?
Correct. Yeah, 1,050,000. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You exceeded initial targets through multiple upsizes. So, what key factors drove this strong investor interest, and how will these funds be allocated across your drilling program and other projects as well?
Yeah, I mean, we went out with a $900,000 financing, again, with likely the capability to do, double that if we'd wanted to. But this really is about, strategic deployment of shares, not wanting to over dilute versus, what capital needs that the company has going forward. So for us, we did upsize a little bit, and that was again, to bring in some strategic investors to the financing that we wanted to be a part of the company that we think will give us more value as we continue to go forward. So, being able to upsize a little bit was a part of that strategy. But again, staying with a smaller issuance at this point to really be able to use that and get our company going a little bit more. So. It was important for us to get that money in, because it does sort of hit the upcoming catalyst with the drill program at Duck Creek. So after closing the financing, a little over a million three in the treasury that is able to take us forward. And I will say, as we get into this drill program, again, another tailwind that we have is, the initial investors in our company have warrants at 10 cents. So we have the potential to really try and pull those warrants in if we're trading well in the money, which we already are. They're at a 10-cent warrant that could bring in another 2.3 million through that sort of financing method. So again, the ability to stay financed, well into next year without having to do another raise is something that we think is going to be appealing, because again, it's not another raise that is, new shares coming out. It's already using instruments that are out there for our company. And again, being able to take us through, what could be a very significant catalyst event with the drilling at Duck Creek. And again, I think there's, several different levers of value there. Obviously, the largest being, mineralization in Fort Union. But again, even being able to bring forward a 5 million pound compliant resource as uranium prices are starting to rise is a pretty significant catalyst for us compared to where our market cap is today, and being able to continue to grow. And that funding will also go towards advancing our Shirley Central project. I mean, that one is incredibly exciting just because of the work that UR Energy is doing right next door. I mean, they're building a brand new facility that is on target to be, starting to produce at the beginning of next year. And that's a plant that's, hundreds of meters away from our property boundaries. So a very exciting project there to be able to, again, potentially add pounds to our company that could be economic because of what is happening right next door. So a very exciting project there, and both of them together giving us, again, that sort of leverage to rising uranium prices for such a small company to potentially have two resources moving towards a compliant pounds in the ground base by the middle of next year is very exciting. And again, the one thing we always talk about, the bird in hand, which is the projects that we have in the company already, but we are continuing to evaluate other projects that will sort of fit this model that we're building out to do what we're doing with Shirley Central, to do what we're doing with Duck Creek, and continue to add, because again, I've stated it that in 18 to 24 months, I want to try and have over 20 million compliant pounds in the company, and that becomes a very exciting number for us. And when we look at a compliant pound in today's market is worth $4 or $5 of market cap. And again, I think the leverage for companies will be when uranium prices are back over $100, and that's no longer $4 or $5 a pound per compliant pound. It's worth 7 or 8 or 9. It'll be very exciting, and especially in this world where domestic U.S. uranium pounds are going to be important. We're seeing programs that need to procure domestic pounds, and ramp ups are happening here. But it's a country that consumes almost 50 million pounds of uranium a year and is still producing under a million. So when we talk about supply demand deficits of the overall uranium market, it's one thing, but domestically in the U.S. we've got a long way to go, and we need a lot of companies doing the kind of good work that we're doing to help supply the domestic market.
Yeah, Drew, do you see Wyoming as a jurisdiction that is going to have much more exploration, much more development of the historical resources, just like we said? So do you see a big rush coming to Wyoming, or we are already witnessing that?
Yeah, I think there's there can always be more. I think we see that in markets. They start to get busy, and you think it's busy, and then over a couple more years, it can get absolutely wild. So I think it's definitely busy in state. There's some big established producers here, obviously. Cameco, UR Energy producing in state already, Peninsula Energy in the northern part of the state. UEC has, 2 hub and spoke programs here. So there's a lot going on already. But then there's, some junior players like ourselves that are, trying to take forward good projects on the periphery, and to be able to sort of bring those into the picture as well, I think is going to be important. So I think, Wyoming is going to be very important. It historically always has been, the big producing state for the United States. And I think that will be the case as we continue to move forward and more projects come back online. And again, with anything, you're able to find good projects, right next to existing good projects, because, mineralization, whether it's, project boundaries or what have you, doesn't stop at project boundaries. So that's what we like to follow up on and go and chase where a lot of the historical work was. And again, that's the good piece about Wyoming being such a big historical producer, was they really, did a lot of work exploring all over the Western United States through the 60s and 70s and even into the early 80s. So there is a lot, that is available for historical data. And, with modern techniques and modern understanding of how different roll fronts are working or different deposit models are working, there's a lot that can be gained, and what is economic at $80 or maybe that's over $100. And again, as the incentive price rises with the spot price, you're able to go out and look at projects that otherwise wouldn't have been economic, or if they're part of a hub and spoke model, are now economic, and standalone were not economic, that sort of thing. So I think there's going to be a lot more coming to the state, because this is a state that understands resource extraction. I mean, it's amazing to be out here, and we've got our uranium projects. On uranium projects, there's also giant wind turbines, and then next to the giant wind turbines, there's oil rigs drilling as well. So, I mean, it's a state that really is all about powering the United States. And when you hear about Chris Wright just saying we need every bit of power to continue to push this country forward, Wyoming is a perfect example of really leaning into that kind of statement and saying,
Yeah.
we're here to really help power this country forward, and it's an exciting place to be working.
Agreed. Final question, news flow from the company. What can investors expect in the upcoming months?
Yeah, we think we've got a great amount of work coming at us as we head into the end of this year. Obviously, being able to announce kicking off our drill program when that gets underway, and then being able to have the results of that coming through. Again, that's a fairly robust drill program, and that'll probably be run 4 or 5 weeks in total. And again, the good thing for us is some of those results are fairly instantaneous. So we'll have sort of batched results from that drill program that will come out over the coming couple of months, and then some other advancements that we have coming as well. So there will be a lot of news flow for investors to keep their eye on. And I think the important thing there is, make sure you go to our website and sign up for our news. You don't want to be missing news that we have coming out, especially when some of those are drill results. Again, as a junior exploration company, we do as much as we can, especially with our strategy to de-risk the drilling. But drill results can obviously be the biggest catalyst that you see for a junior company. And we are very confident in the results that we're going to be able to put out, and really excited about what's coming.
I'm looking forward to see the results and the progress. That was Drew Zimmerman, Noble Plains Uranium president. Drew, thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, Lucian, thanks for having me on. It was great to give you and all your listeners an update about what we've been up to.